Welcome, guys, to our first AFL edition of a breakdown here, some video content at Fantasy Sports Insight. My name is Hold the Door DFS. You can find me on Twitter. So this is brand new for me, as it is for, I'm sure, a lot of other people. It's not the first time that I've being introduced to AFL, but from a DFS perspective, it's definitely a learning game. But I think in most of my DFS experiences, I feel that, niche sports or things that are less, covered by the general public and other big DFS industries, companies, I think that there's a lot of edge. So starting out with the first Showdown slate, with the AFL, some Aussie rules football, I'm going to kind of talk first a little bit about what the scoring is and just some basics of the game if you don't understand it. I will be providing a core lineup. The lineups are out of 9 players. The core will probably consist of at least 4 with a couple options. There is 18 players starting, so it's a little bit different than your typical Showdown because the rosters are huge here. You have 18 people on the field and then 4 people on the bench. So it is definitely a little bit different, but I think I'm really excited just to get into something new, find if there's an edge. So go to fsidfs.com. You'll be able to get into our free Discord channel, and I'll make an announcement in there on where it will be posted. We will try to continue to get some content out here, and I'll show you some of our projections that we have already lined up. Obviously, it's really baseline right now. We only have 1 week to go off of, but let's get into it. So if you're not familiar with AFL, it's kind of like a combination of American football, soccer, and rugby. Obviously, the goal is to score goals by kicking the ball through the goalposts that are a lot closer together. You can also if you can get the ball on the ground, you can kick it through, you can go off to the side, you can still get 1 point for that, while the other one's worth 6 points. So you'll see on the scoring here for DraftKings, it's called a behind, and that's going to be that scoring that happens when you don't score a goal, but you hit it close to it, or you just kick it out of bounds, really. You'll see on the outer, there's an outer goalpost. Anywhere in that range, that's where the behind would count. The goals were 6 points. A tackle, just like a tackle in football, but you need to be tackling the guy with the ball, is worth 4 points. A kick, they can kick it, like a watermelon, or just kick it like a spiral, or however you want to kick it. That's worth 3 points. A mark is catching that kick in the air, and that's where you'll see a lot of the really tall players playing in those forward positions where they're going up really high. And this is where it's really cool just to kind of watch some highlights and watch the game, is where these guys will actually propel themselves off of another player using their shoulders. So that is going to be a mark, kind of like a wide receiver. Handball is where the players will actually hit the ball using their fist as another way to get the ball downfield. A hit out. Now, hit out, when we get into the positional pages, we'll talk about this too, but a hit out is almost like a jump ball in basketball or a face-off in hockey, and you are getting a point if you are the person that is jumping up and you are getting the ball to be on your team. So, and there's designated players for that position, so I'll kind of talk about that when we get to the positions. A free kick for and a free kick against, similar to a soccer, it's a penalty. It seems like there's a little bit less than you would normally see in a soccer match, but you do see that the free kick against is a negative 3 points, which is more than what it's worth for gaining the free kick, which is different than in soccer, where you're getting a point for a foul drawn and you're only losing a half a point for the foul conceded. So that's kind of where the scoring is going to be at. You are going to be able to choose 1 ruck, 2 defenders, 4 midfielders, and 2 forwards. So let's move on to, and this is, like I said, is a 1-game slate. So for our odds here today, I'm just taking a look at here at Bovada. We have Richmond versus Collingwood. Richmond coming in as a minus 175 favorite. I think that's, relatively significant. It's not a huge favorite, but I think it's something that we consider. I also, and obviously this doesn't matter as much being on a 1-game slate. I tried to just see where the average scoring was, and a line of a minus 135 and 139.5 seemed to be kind of middling. Not like a super high scoring game where you got some lines at minus 140, but I would say, a little bit above average. So I do think that we see some decent scoring here from both sides. And they are a 7.5 point favorite. So like I said, a goal is worth 6 and the behind is worth 1. Now, when we start getting into the lineups and some of the scoring, and when I look at the projections here, which we'll get back to, I just want to point out that normally these matches would be 4 quarters, 20 minutes. Due to the COVID-19 and them just trying to preserve the players right now with not as much training and things like that, the quarters are shortened to 16 minutes. So that does skew some of the projections if you're using baseline data from 2019, that the fantasy scores in general might be just a little bit lower due to that. So do take that into consideration when you're building, if you're using 2019 stats, that it might be a little bit off just because of that. And I will say I am absolutely no expert in AFL, from a fan perspective at all. So if I pronounce somebody's name wrong or do anything like that, that is just because I'm not familiar with the players. I am just trying to learn the system from a DFS perspective and the players and just using projections and raw statistics to make, educated lineups and decisions like that. So I think as we continue to go and move forward with this, that's when the learning part of AFL will definitely come along for me, where I might make some decisions based a little bit away from just data. But similar to CSGO for me, a sport that I wasn't super familiar with when I started playing it from a DFS side, you start to learn the ins and outs and the intricacies of not only the game, but how it applies to the DFS scoring. So we are going to start here with the Rucks. Grundy is going to be the most expensive player on the slate at 9,300. He, in round 1, he had 114 points, as you'll see here. Now, I just want to take you through what the scoring looks like a little bit on here. So here's his big, the hit out is worth 1 point. He had 37 hit outs. So that means when they go up for the jump ball, he gained possession for his team. He drew 4 fouls, and he had 1 foul against. He had 3 marks that he caught the ball in the air, 3 tackles, and 8 kicks. He had 3, let's go back to our scoring here, 3 behinds where he just kicked it out of bounds, or kicked it, not through the goal, but scored still a point for his team. 11 handballs where he made a successful pass using his fist, and then 1 goal. And they won 86-34. So they dominated pretty well in that first matchup. I do think, just as a raw projection, and when I go over here to my projections, and now these are very raw and new, and so we will be tweaking things, but I think it does give us kind of an idea of where players are at. So in my projections right now, we are using the 2019 data and also looking at the data that we had from the first game. Again, so the numbers, could be skewed. I don't think he's going to score 121 because a lot of this data is based off the 20-minute quarters. But he is the highest raw projected player on the slate. Now, there is a case to be made to fade him if you want to go to Soldo. Soldo is the other ruck for Richmond who's favored here. I think the reason that people might consider him for the significantly cheaper price tag is that I think it's Nankervis is out tonight or this in the morning for us here. giving more of those ruck duties to Soldo, who, so they may have like been splitting. So if we go here to last game, Nankervis had 16 hitouts. So that was taking away some of that value from him who had 25. So you're assuming that he might take up more of that role. And most teams will have like a backup. And in this case, actually, Darcy Cameron is likely to start here tonight, and he would be still considered like the backup role for this. But we assume that Grundy will take most of those jump balls. But actually, Cameron's going to probably play in a forward position. So his price tag is super cheap and appealing. It's just unfortunate that we can't use him at a different position, because I do think that this is a position that you are going to likely in cash games. I can see Grundy being really popular. And maybe if you need the value because you want to pay up at some other positions, then you go to Soldo. So that's kind of where we're at with the ruck. Again, and I'll mention Pickett is going to be the backup ruck for Soldo now that Nankervis is out. So he does get a little bit extra added value, because if he takes like some of those jump balls while also playing his normal position, that's just some like added stats that he could get to his value. So let's go to the defenders first. Bring up my projections here. So for our defenders, and I'm going to kind of go back here. I'll kind of go back and forth. Jeremy Howe at 6,300. We have him projected at 92 points. And then our next highest defender, Braden Maynard at 78 points projected. If you do look up, I think Richmond has given up, I think maybe like the third highest fantasy points against defenders last season, if I remember right, reading somewhere. So I think that definitely puts in play somebody like Howe and Maynard for their projected totals. We also have Crisp, the other defender down here. Where is Crisp? He's projected for 80 points. So again, another solid play. Again, you can only start 2 defenders here. So, you have to make a stand. You can't play all these guys, obviously. And Crisp actually, led the team in catches last year. Mark. So where is he at here? Crisp. In 2019, or he projected just a little bit. Yeah, so actually Howe averaged more per game than him. So I think for the cheaper price tag, I think I'd rather go to Howe over Crisp. And then after that, we'll have to kind of see how the lineups shake out. But if I'm looking at value in defenders, if you're wanting to pay down a little bit, Asbury here is expected to start at 3,200. And I'm using just foxsports.com.au to look at just the projected lineups right now. It does seem like the coaches actually speak out to who a lot of the players are playing and not playing earlier than we'd see like in a soccer game. Just due to the fact that like it's a huge deal when somebody is just like you are announced in the lineup, especially if somebody that maybe hasn't played very often. So if we look here, and these positions look a little bit different. We have right here David Asbury is starting in the back there. So at 3,200, he's somebody that's definitely viable. He's grading out pretty nice for our value. Liam Baker, I think he is starting as well. Yes, right here. So I think if you're wanting to punt, you can go down to one of those 2 players. You can look at some of our other defenders. Vastelin doesn't grade out as much of a value, especially for 5,800. Almost too expensive. Sydney Stack. I think he is, again, not grading out as well of a value, but also in the starting lineup. So I think you probably want to pay up for either Maynard or Howe or both of them. And even Noble is viable too here at 5,200, projected for 68 points. Otherwise, I think I'm passing on Crisp here. Jaden Short, 5,300 if you want to get one from the Richmond side. So that's kind of where I'm at for now. Shane Edwards is not grading out as the best value. I think that's partly because he didn't play very well in the first game. If I remember right, 54 points. Didn't do all that well. Did not even get close to reaching value for what his price tag would be considered compared to right now. So these price tags, obviously there wasn't a first slate, so it's comparing the price tag to how they performed in that first game. All right, let's move back into our builds. So again, somebody like Howe, Maynard. You can also look down to, like I mentioned before, Atsbury. And you can see the guys who played. Anybody who played in those last games are definitely showing up here. So you'll see just their points per game. Yeah, Stack at 26 points. So not real great there. So let's go to the midfield. Traylor is out, I think, from what I'm seeing here in our projected lineups. I think he was ruled out before too, unless that has maybe changed since. So he plays here for Collingwood. And I thought I saw that he was out. I don't see his name here in the projected lineups. And I'm pretty sure he's still out. I will double check that. I think I read earlier he's out, maybe longer term, if I remember right. Yeah. So I don't see him in here either. Mason Cox is also out, who played last game. So let's dive in a little bit here to the midfield. So Mr. Sidebottom, with an awesome name. He had 107 points in that first game, a ton of handballs. So in the midfield, he was passing quite a bit, did not even score a goal, and still had 107 points. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of really active play out of him. Similar, also really like Taylor Adams, who is kicking a lot and doing a lot of the passing with the handball. Again, scored one goal, but Taylor Adams and Sidebottom had a lot of peripheral stats that were really nice here. I think Chris Main might be one of the most popular plays on the slate, partly due to his price tag and due to the fact that he scored 94 points last game. Again, you're seeing these peripheral stats here in the middle. It's something that I think that we can create floors for players as we get more consistent data. And then here, another one of my favorite values for Collingwood, Josh Diasos. He did score 2 goals, so that probably skewed this stat line a little bit. And maybe that's why he is coming in at one of the best values on the slate in terms of my projections. But again, that's weighting heavily on him going, 21 X, or his value was like the greatest on the last slate. Where I think Maine is definitely safer, just due to that we saw a lot of those peripheral stats with the kicking and the handball, rather than being goal dependent like Dacios was here. So that's from the Collingwood side. If we go to the Richmond side here in the mid, Martin is somebody that we're looking at. He had 90 points in that first game, was second on the team in goals last year. Priesta played really well too. Another one of those floor players, again, who's really active in the midfield. Caddy is out, I believe, tonight, so make sure you stay off of him. And I think Ross will also be out. Pickett is somebody that is pretty intriguing here. He played really well last game. He did have a goal, had some of a little bit of the peripheral stats, but he is expected now to take that backup ruck role. So if he does get some of those opportunities to take the jump ball, that's going to just add to his floor, which I really do like here for 4,200. I think that kind of brings in some added value that maybe we will need in the midfield for somebody like him. So if you are playing at, for me, it's going to be 4:40 in the morning. I really do suggest that you at least set your alarm to check to make sure that there is no changes or somebody's not out of the lineup. I'm assuming DraftKings will update that on here as well once the lineups are released. And I don't know the time frame. I assume it's similar to like an hour before But we already have the predicted lineups out right here, like I said, and I will get this posted in our Discord channel. So be free to jump over there and look at those predicted lineups. But I think that, in the midfield, again, like I said, I think I'm really looking, I know Richmond's favored here, so I think I want to make sure that I'm not going too heavy on Collingwood in the midfield, but I do really like the floors of some of their players in terms of what they're providing in those peripheral stats. I think Martin obviously has that goal upside, and Priesta, if you're taking somebody from Richmond, and then as I mentioned before, I really like Pickett as a value play. So let's move over to forward. We do have some players that have multiple position eligibility. As you see, Martin is listed in both of the categories. So I'm going to filter back and just kind of look at where our projections are at with some of our forwards. Mihoik, I think is how you pronounce his name, 5,500, is got a nice projected value. Bolton at 4,600 for Richmond, also with a really nice projected value here. And I believe both of them are expected to be in the lineup. Bolton here. And we have, where is on the other team? Hoskins Elliott is in. Oh yeah, Mihoik right here is projected in. So if we go to our forwards, on the Richmond side, Martin is the most expensive by quite a bit. Lambert had a goal, had some peripheral stats. So I think this is going to be similar to like a soccer too, like where these guys are going to be a little bit more goal dependent. Shea Bolton, he did have 11 kicks, had 3 goals, which I think obviously skews the price tag a little bit. That might be an outlier that you can't really expect 3 goals from him every slate. Rioli, I think, also had 3 goals. Yes. So again, another potential value right there at 3,800. Jack Higgins, and this is just me listening to, trying to do some of their background information on the teams, is actually making his first career start after coming off of a brain surgery. So there's a little bit of narrative there to see how he performs. So that's kind of where I would probably start. Again, there's some nice value here. We have Jack Rywalt, again, another 3-goal performance. So I don't know that we can expect 3 goals out of each of these cheap guys. Again, where we might see more goals on more of the star players like Martin and maybe Lampert, somebody that might get more of those goals in the slate. But there's certainly value there. And then let's go to the Collingham side. So we have, let's see, Jordan DeGoey. I think when I read up on him, looks like he's somebody that is coming onto the scene as a young star. Again, I'm learning as much as a lot of you are as we go through this. He had a goal. He had 2 behinds. Had some nice kicks. So 61 points was a decent floor there for the price tag. He is expected to continue to be in the lineup. Mihoik, again, 3 goals. You take away 2 of those goals and a couple of the kicks. That does definitely reduce the price tag or the score. But I do think he has some value there. And then Mason Cox is out. And then we have, Colin Brown had some nice peripheral stats and not so heavily dependent on the goals, which I liked for that price tag. Jamie Elliott. I wanted to look at Hoskin Elliott here. Again, I really liked here. He 6 marks, 6 handballs, 9 kicks, drew a couple fouls and scored a goal. And Hoskin Elliott is grading out as a pretty nice value for us as well. Again, Dacios is looking better at the midfield if you compare these two, but that is really based on that 3-goal performance he had. So don't really expect that necessarily to repeat. So that's kind of where I'm at. And this is just me talking through, breaking down the first slate. I am learning as I go. I'm going to use the projections. We're going to continue to use data and projections and start to watch the games and see where the positions where these guys are lining up and how it adjusts their roles. But I think hopefully that this gives you a good starting point. I'm going to continue to dive in throughout the day, and then we will have at least 4 core plays, 3 or 4 core plays posted in our Discord channel. So go to fsidfs.com, and you'll be able to just sign up for our Discord channel for free, and then find this channel once you get in. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, Hold the Door DFS. I'm certainly willing to help out, and let's make some money in another niche sport, man. I'm excited. When you look at a 9 roster configuration for a showdown slate where you only have 2 teams to pick from, is pretty amazing. But with 18 players on both sides, you're still only rostering a fourth of the players on the field necessarily. So, and this field, for those of you that don't know, it is similar to like I think it's bigger than both a soccer and football field, but it's just more like an egg shaped, like a oval. So, again, I'm really excited to turn it on and watch it in the morning, just to kind of get a feel for how it relates to the DFS side. So hope you enjoyed. Hit the subscribe button. We're going to hopefully continue to put out more content for AFL, esports, PGA. We have an awesome PGA video up right now where one of our owners is actually singing to Kevin Na, which I think was like my form of entertainment yesterday. I just sat there and laughed at that for a while. So hop on over, check out our content. Hope you enjoyed. Win some money.